Sure. What's our opener?
What?
What's our opener?
Ready?
Sure.
Guten Tag,
Hello.
which is German for hello. Kinda, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good day.
So why are we doing this in September? We're talking about Oktoberfest beers in September. John?
Well, traditionally, the Oktoberfest festival that's going to be happening in Munich is generally at the end of September. And in the beer business, there's this thing we like to call seasonal creep, which is where things like pumpkin beers and the wonderful Oktoberfest style beers we have here are out months in advance of supposed season that they normally show up in.
Now, for me, the biggest bummer about these beers is that it is only seasonal. These beers could easily be drank year-round.
Yeah, I mean, the Great Oktoberfest style beer is, it's meant to be drank at a festival and have multiples of and large quantities of. So, these are extraordinarily drinkable beers. What we're going to find here is, while they are drinkable lagers, the only really big difference is it's just going to be a little more ass to them, as they would say, a little more oomph on them. But yeah, these are really drinkable beers that, there's really no reason you can drink these beers year-round.
Now, of course, ICAP has a lot of international options for these, specifically German options, but we decided to choose two of our local favorites as far as styles.
Yeah, two great locally made beers, at least in St. Louis, and then we'll kind of showcase two different styles of Oktoberfest beers that you will see on the market, both German and American. So, but yeah, these will represent both pretty well.
And for those of you who need translation, I speak a little bit of German. Märzen means of March.
Yes.
Which means these beers traditionally were brewed in March and lagered until September.
Yes, kind of, sort of. There's always a bit of, wishy-washiness when it comes to some of these beer stories. You basically stopped, back in the day before they had refrigeration in Germany, they would stop brewing these beers. March was the last month you could brew these beers because it would get too hot. Because to make a lager, you need the beer to be cold. Well, after March, it's not very cold, and the hotter it gets, they didn't have a lot of great sanitation, the more, bacteria that may cause spoilage and stuff like that. So some of the stories you might hear where is they'll put them in the caves in March and have them ready for September. Some of the other stories you also hear where Oktoberfest started was, since you can't brew between March and September, is the beer that they were serving at Oktoberfest was all the beer they had left over from that final brewing season, and they were trying to drink it, get rid of all of it, so they have fresh beer to start drinking for the traditional brewing season between September and March.
That's why it's crazy, because this style, whether we're talking the Fest style or the Märzen style, are incredibly drinkable.
Yes.
Very drinkable, easily drinkable throughout the year, but for some reason, tradition states that we can only drink it
or
late August through late October.
Either that or manufacturing your own demand. But nobody, I'm sure these businesses would never ever try to manufacture demand. So.
All right, let's get some pouring.
Let's get some pouring. You say Sapporo, that's a Japanese.
Let's get to pouring. Trying to be as socially distant and responsible as possible.
Yes. 6 feet. 6 feet. Ish. 6 feet. 6 feet.
German.
So we have the four hands, the Festbier here. Festbier is typically going to be a little bit on the lighter side. So, little known fact, everyone drinks Oktoberfest here. These are very popular for us. I'm going to pour yours. The sort of darker style that we'll see here from Schlafly is actually, you don't see that in Germany anymore. You see more of the lighter sort of Festbier style. That's been that way for quite some time. So anytime you see sort of a darker Märzen, even if it was brewed by a German brewery, those are almost made to solely for U.S. For importation or exportation to the U.S. and solely for consumption on this side of the ocean. This is going to be what you're going to see at an Oktoberfest. Technically, you can't even call in Germany. You can't even call an Oktoberfest beer an Oktoberfest beer. The designation Oktoberfest is beer is.
You have to be at the festival.
Yeah, it has to be beer brewed in a certain geographic area, beer brewed for the festival. I think it has to be licensed I'm sure I have plenty of German friends when I studied abroad that would be happy to correct me when I put this on my Facebook. But yeah, it had to be licensed to be brewed for that festival. So if you see Oktoberfest, that's the law obviously doesn't apply to American beer, so you're not going to really see that here. But you will see the lighter style there. You also might see the term Wiesen, V-I-E-S-N. Some people can think that's like, oh, it's a Weiss beer. No, Wiesen. That's way more of a traditional style that you're going to see at Oktoberfest, and I think that's been the official Oktoberfest beer for, I don't know, probably since the 70s or 80s.
Because of our current unprecedented times, there is no Oktoberfest festival this year.
Yes.
For the first time in, hundreds of years.
Yes.
Well, dozens of years at least. Locally, probably a lot of them are canceled too. So you're going to have an Oktoberfest either socially distant at your favorite ITAB or buying it at ITAB and taking it home and having an Oktoberfest party. You can squeeze into your lederhosen like I have. These, at least the darker Märzen,
Yeah.
definitely sweeter.
I would say sweeter in the sort of malty sense. These are both going to be malt forward beers in the sense that it's going to have a heavier sort of borderline chewy mouthfeel. They're both going to finish a bit here on the dry side. I wouldn't say, maybe not dry is the wrong word. They're going to finish crisp, but I wouldn't say dry.
Because it lingers on your tongue.
Yeah, you might just get like a little bit of bitterness on the finish here, but it's a bitterness that's going to keep it crisp and refreshing, not a bitterness that's going to linger. The Märzen, the darker one, is going to be a little heavier. It's going to come off as a little bit sweeter. Schlafly does a great job of keeping theirs really well balanced.
This is my favorite style, and has been for years. And I'd like to say not to promote a certain beer or another. Schlafly's Oktoberfest has been spot on.
Yeah, it's
easily one of the best representations of the classics.
It's typical Schlafly. It's super consistent. It's true to form. It's what the beer's supposed to be. It's I always have this stupid thing I say. It's like the Plato's theory of forms. Like when you imagine the word Oktoberfest, like this does a really good job of representing in your head. Like when I think Oktoberfest beer, this color, that level of sweetness, that level of drinkability. What's it? 5.5.
That's another thing. It's
5.5% alcohol. Yep, 5.5% alcohol, which is got a little more to it than your standard lager that you pound every day, but it's still something you can have a couple of mugs of and not be too crazy.
And then Forehands, this is their first year doing a fest beer.
Yeah, it's their first year doing a fest beer, and it's pretty spot on as well. Like I said, it's just a little bit more crisp, but it is going to be not a heavy beer, but heavier than a standard lager, like if you drink their Full Life, which is their kind of everyday lager. It's going to have a little more to it than that. It's going to have a nice, I'd say like bready or like doughy, think like an undercooked biscuit. I think that would be the best way.
I don't think that's a good way to sell it though.
You don't think that's good? If you look up the traditional style, the guidelines, that's how they describe it. 5.8%. You want a little bit heavier, but still pretty drinkable.
And then the best German version that we may have, depending on
the best version, period, is the Eyinger Oktoberfest Märzen. Unfortunately, during these unprecedented times that one day will be precedented again, not a ton of that came into the market this year. We're still working to try to find some kegs. Our wonderful distributors are trying to work a deal to get us some kegs out to St. Louis, but nothing guaranteed this year. I know they cut the orders, unfortunately.
And then the true German version of the fest beer, Hofbrau?
I say Hofbrau. Hofbrau is a great interpretation of it. Weinstefaner makes a fest beer as well that I would say is more along these lines. For friends in Kansas City and now available in Columbia as well, Kansas City Beer Co. makes a fest beer. That's just a hair more along the lines with this. That is an absolutely wonderful beer. I highly recommend it.
Cool. All right, well. Prost.
Prost.
Distant Prost.
Distant Prost. Clink clank.
Clink clank.
Cheers.
Auf Wiedersehen.
See you in the next one.